Millionaire in a panic, explosive moment as a cleaner transformed everything in just 60 seconds.
Tom stood in the expansive living room of yet another sprawling mansion in Westwood, California, feeling like a ghost. His hands moved mechanically, dusting away layers of opulence, gold leaf frames and chandeliers that sparkled more than his future seemed to. As he polished yet another immaculate surface, his thoughts frequently drifted to his mother, bedridden and frail, battling an illness that drained their modest savings each month. How surreal it was to meticulously clean homes overflowing with wealth, knowing each swipe of his cloth was only deepening the chasm between his life and theirs. Each day was a cycle of invisibility, a cycle he couldn't break, but that day, something was different. As he adjusted a framed photograph, the corner of his eye caught a glimmer peeking through an old wall panel. Curiosity clawed at his chest, urging him to investigate.
Could this be a relic of value, one that finally lifts him from the shadows?
Tom pried open the panel, his heart racing. Inside was an attic space filled with dusty trunks and artifacts whispering stories of a bygone era. One chest captivated him, a tarnished metal glinting in the dim light, adorned with his grandfather's name. The joys of his family's past surged to the forefront of Tom's mind, mingling with a wave of conflicting emotions.
Should he seize this opportunity? Could he risk selling a piece of his family's legacy, just to stay afloat?
Panic tightened his throat like a noose as he pondered the wealth disparity separating him from the lives of these millionaires. He hesitated, thinking of the judgment that would surely follow. Everyone else had a narrative of success, while his felt like a failure. The decision churned inside him, an ever-growing weight of dishonor versus a desire for relief.
Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow.
If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from.
I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Tom resolved to return the artifacts to their rightful place, a noise shattered his thoughts, the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. His breath hitched, urgency fueled his movements as he hastily replaced the wall panel, heart racing. He barely had time to compose himself when the mansion's owner, a coldly affable man with a penchant for arrogance, entered the room, his gaze sweeping Tom as if he were worthless furniture. Tom's mind raced.
In one split second, the precious metal disappeared from view.
Muffled voices in the corridor conspired around him, whispers of theft and deceit unfolding like a fragile paper chain. In that heartbeat, Tom was transformed from a mere cleaner into a target, trapped in a confusing quest where guilt and innocence blurred. Feeling cornered, he eyed the door, his resolve crumbling. He would not simply be a ghost, he would fight not only against the accusations but against the weight of feelings that swirled inside him. What if the very people he had wanted to impress turned out to be deceitful, cruel? Every fiber of his being ached to reclaim the narrative of his life. Just when all seemed lost, a figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Evelyn Cartwright. Tom had seen the fallen professor known for her brilliance and her scandal, but maybe here lay an unlikely ally. Together, they would expose the secrets lurking behind polished facades, shattering the delusions of wealth and ambition. Just then, a new, chilling realization struck him. Dr. Cartwright had her own connections to the missing artifact, ties that twisted deeper than he could fathom. With one shocking truth unfolding after another, Tom could feel the walls closing in, choices pressing heavily.
Would he succumb to despair, or rise to reclaim his family's legacy courageously?
The stakes had never been higher, and fear coursed through him. Would he be forever lost in the dark? The horrifying twist loomed large, leaving him frozen, confronted with an impossible choice in the face of chaos. Tom's heart thudded wildly as he turned to Dr. Evelyn Cartwright, a figure he once only admired from afar. She was intimidating, her intellect sharp and her past riddled with controversies that held a divergent allure.
Could she truly be the ally he needed to navigate this impending clash? "Evelyn," he said, feeling the weight of his own uncertainty creep into his voice. "You have to help me."
"Help you? Or help myself?" She shot back, her blue eyes narrowing as she assessed him.
"Do you know what it's like to be underestimated? I see it in you."
They look past worthless appearances and only see a cleaner.
That essay game we can turn on them, Tom. But you need to commit.
The phrase commit lingered in his mind, its simplicity belied by the complexity it ignited within him. For years, he had merely played the role that had been assigned to him, an unseen presence in the backdrop of affluence. But now, involuntarily, he was thrust into a narrative that put him at the center, whether he wanted it or not.
What do I do?
He asked, his voice finally steady. Evelyn approached, lowering her voice so that only he could hear.
First, we gather information. That medal, you must find out its significance.
It's tied to your family, but it's also coveted here.
Who knows what it could unlock?
We need to understand the stakes before we proceed.
He nodded, feeling a mix of nerves and curiosity.
That simple tarnished piece of metal had become a talisman, the key to a potential reclamation of everything he thought lost. The plan began to form. Despite his instinctive apprehension, Tom realized the time for passivity had passed. He would no longer remain an invisible fixture in this grand tale, he would excavate layers of mystery hidden beneath the gilded exterior. With each passing day, he oscillated between hope and dread. His mother's frailty continued to torment his thoughts, her medical expenses perpetually looming over him like a dark storm cloud. The pressure intensified as he committed himself to newfound risks. Evelyn's initial tutoring in stealth and strategy brought unexpected revelations.
Tom discovered an uncanny knack for observation.
He started noticing details others overlooked: the flickering eyes of the staff whispering behind closed doors, the incongruous glances that traveled between the wealthy patrons.
Each clue painted a more vivid picture of the disparity between wealth and the lives it overshadowed.
Yet, with this developing acumen came haunting realizations.
The mansion's residents were not just ignorant bystanders, their lush lives were built on manipulation and betrayal.
The juxtaposition of their lives against his felt increasingly unbearable. His anger simmered as he learned of their indifference towards hardship, wrapping him in a cloak of determination that initially surprised him. One evening, while waxing a particularly ornate banister, he overheard the owner discussing a missing artifact in hushed tones.
His pulse quickened. This had to be the medal. All the pieces began fitting together in a troubling mosaic. He needed to assess the extent of Evelyn's insights and recalibrate their approach.
"Evelyn," he called out, urgency creeping into his tone.
"We need to talk.
I heard something that could change everything." Her sharp gaze returned to him, and he sensed a widening rift glowing in her expression, a mixture of intrigue and caution. Tom realized the choices ahead would not just be about survival, it would require dismantling bridges woven from deceit and wealth. The time had come to face the faces beneath the masks. Just as he resolved to reveal everything he had learned, another disconcerting thought struck him: suspicion was going to rise, and alliances could shatter. What had initially been a quest for dignity had morphed into a dangerous game that challenged the very essence of his identity. Yet, one vital question loomed like a shadow over him: how much was he willing to risk to protect his past and redefine his future in a world steeped in lies? With his heart pounding, he understood that with every revelation he sought, someone would undoubtedly seek to pull him back into darkness. The silence in the ornate hallway was palpable, pressing in around Tom like a suffocating embrace. He could feel his pulse thumping in his ears as he met Evelyn's penetrating gaze. The urgency in his voice, the weight of the information he had just gathered, it all felt monumental, yet he was suffocated by uncertainty.
"We can't waste time, Evelyn.
If what I overheard is true, the medal is more than just an heirloom, it could shift everything." He took a breath, pushing aside doubts that clawed at his resolve.
"We need a plan to retrieve it."
Evelyn's lips curled into a slight smirk, but there was an edge to it.
"Retrieving it won't be a simple task, Tom. The stakes are higher than you think."
Suddenly, several emotions clashed within him: fear, anger, a surge of confidence from his newfound insights. Despite the shadows lying heavy on his shoulders, the thought of reclaiming his past powered his determination.
"Then what's our next step?" "First, we need to employ the element of surprise.
You must learn more about this household, their routines, their weaknesses. Most importantly, we need to connect with those who might not be in their inner circles but know the secrets."
Evelyn paced slightly, her sharp mind already strategizing.
The thought of coercing information from the very people he had once viewed with contempt unnerved him, yet a ripple of excitement churned in his stomach. Here he was, poised to step into a world that had always seemed out of reach, and he had Evelyn, an enigmatic ally with a hidden agenda of her own. "I can do that," he declared, the resolve in his voice surprising him. With a nod of approval, Evelyn pivoted back towards him. "Good. You'll need to immerse yourself in their context. Attend their lavish gatherings, become a part of their conversations, even their whispers." The way she spoke made it seem like a dance, a carefully choreographed routine, one where he would need to learn the steps quickly to avoid stepping on toes. He understood the necessary precautions. Tom needed to project an air of confidence he didn't feel, and he needed to mingle with individuals who would otherwise dismiss him as invisible. The dichotomy he had previously loathed was now morphing into an opportunity for him to leverage. Days turned into an alchemical blend of fear and exhilaration. He practiced subtleties in front of the mirror, attempting to mimic the poise of the elite, all while feeling the grit of his true self lying just beneath the surface. Each day in the mansion allowed him glimpses of their privileged encounters with the cruel indifference of wealth. Meanwhile, his interactions with the staff grew deeper, their stories intertwining with his own circuitous journey. The sweet elderly housekeeper shared tales of her family with loving nostalgia, while the stern but shrewd gardener revealed little bits of information about the residents that spoke volumes. Tom began to connect with them on a human level, realizing they too carried sorrows and burdens, hidden away behind polished facades. In each carefully orchestrated encounter, his reputation shifted. Former whispers about the cleaner faded as he began to embody a spark of charisma that he never thought he possessed. The confidence wrapped around him like a coat, but with it came a nagging sense of unease. How much of himself was he willing to sacrifice for this masquerade? After an especially lavish ball, where he played his part flawlessly, he caught sight of a heavy-set man observing him intensely from across the room. Something about that intent gaze sent chills racing down his spine. The man appeared too curious, too invested in Tom's performance. As Tom made his way to the exit, his mind raced. He felt like an intruder in a realm where he barely belonged, yet with each effort to unveil the web of lies surrounding the metal, he sensed the strands beginning to intertwine not just for the household but for his own identity as well. What if the very secrets he sought could unravel him instead? What if the more he learned, the closer he got to the truth, the less he recognized himself? As doubt wrestled with his determination, he gathered strength from the realizations that had empowered him thus far. Perhaps vulnerability could be a source of power rather than weakness. But the path ahead held peril, and each step closer to the truth threatened to challenge everything he thought he understood. The next ball was approaching, and with it the opportunity to spy more closely on that man. Tom felt the stakes rising, realizing he was not just playing a dangerous game in search of a family heirloom, he was navigating a labyrinth of deceit that could culminate in a revelation more profound than any metal. In that moment, he grasped something fundamental yet unsettling. What if Evelyn's intentions unraveled along with his? And who might betray whom when the ties of trust began to fray? As he steeled himself for the gathering, a blend of gears set in motion. It became evident, the scheme was spinning faster than he initially anticipated, and Tom wondered if he was prepared for the truths lurking in the shadows, ready to fracture his shaky new facade. The night of the ball arrived, wrapping the mansion in a cloak of shimmering sophistication. Tom stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie for what felt like the 10th time. Every flicker of his reflection reminded him of the line he was walking between his old self and this new persona, the polished stranger emerging from the shadows of his past. With each passing moment, his nerves spiraled. Inspiration ebbed beneath those crisp clothes that felt foreign on his skin. How had he become this man, so adept at moving among the elite, yet so aware of his precarious position? Tonight, he would need to wear that confidence like armor. Fear would not be an option. The heavy-set man from the last ball lingered in his mind, an ominous shadow that seemed to follow him into this upscale gathering. As he stepped into the grand hall adorned with luxury, he was met by a cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses. It felt surreal, the world he moved in now blurred into a tableau of excess that both fascinated and repulsed him. He mingled within the crowd, forcing himself into small talk, but beneath the pleasantries, he was hyper-aware of everything: the subtext, the unspoken dynamics, and the possibilities hiding just beneath polished surfaces. Tom's strategy centered on gathering intel, and occasionally, he reached out to the edges of conversations where secrets often lay dormant. He'd become adept at reading the subtle cues of wealth, the raised eyebrow that signaled distrust or the diverted gaze that hinted at hidden emotions. Each interaction was a move in a game he had yet to entirely master. His focus, however, kept drifting back to the man from before. Every time he turned his head, he scanned the crowd, hoping to spot that familiar figure. Was it paranoia setting in, or was he truly being hunted? Finally, he spotted him near the corner, nursing a drink, his expression a mix of scrutiny and amusement. The man's presence suddenly felt like a magnet, drawing Tom forward with invisible strings. He was thrust into a calculation of whether to approach or to retreat, values colliding within him as he considered what the engagement could cost. Would this man see through his facade? Would he realize Tom was not just a cleaner in disguise but a determined seeker of truth? With sudden resolve, he made his way across the room, weaving through obstacles as if the other guests were mere phantoms. He could feel his heart racing, the pressure of the moment squeezing him as he reached the man's side. "Good evening," Tom managed, adrenaline coursing through him, making his words tremble slightly, betraying an edge of vulnerability. The man's eyes sparkled with an unsettling mix of curiosity and knowledge. "Ah, the cleaner who dances with the elite. A curious role you've taken on, don't you think?" Tom's mind buzzed, grappling with the implications of the statement. There it was, the unmasking of intent. Was he merely a subject of amusement for this man, or was there a deeper game being played? "I find opportunity where others see limitations," Tom replied, channeling the confidence he had forged over these past few weeks. Each word became a brick in the wall of his new identity. The man chuckled, and for a moment, Tom thought he sensed a flicker of respect. "A wise approach," he said, eyeing Tom with keen interest. "But every opportunity has its cost, wouldn't you agree? The question remains, how far are you willing to go to seize it?" Tom felt the air grow heavier. A challenge had been thrown, wrapped in the guise of cordial conversation, but it was stark and pointed. He was no longer just a participant, he was a player in this dangerous arena, where every move could tip the balance of power. How much does one need to lose to gain what they truly seek? Tom asked, surprising himself with the audacity of the question. A silence enveloped them, thick with tension. The man's expression darkened, and Tom realized too late he had ventured too far. In that singular moment, he understood that he was standing on a precipice of decisions that would either lead him to victory or plunge him into chaos. The latent danger was clearer than ever. Evelyn's hidden motives danced dangerously close to his OWN.AS. The ball continued to swirl around him. Thomas' mind raced with the ramifications of each word exchanged and the potential fallout from this encounter. Who was the real adversary here? And what would he discover if he delved deeper? A sudden crash from across the room interrupted his thoughts, drawing both their gazes. A glass shattered, and chaos erupted around them as a scuffle broke out, stirring the crowd into a panic. Tom's heart raced for a different reason now, a spark igniting inside him. The moment of unmasking might be upon him, whether he was ready for it or not. Who would emerge unscathed from this fray, and what truths would tumble out amidst the chaos? With stakes escalating, Tom realized his role in this machination was far more complex than he could have anticipated. His journey was just beginning, and the time had come to confront the shadows that loomed ever closer. The chaos erupted with a surprising ferocity, the sound of shattering glass echoing against the marble walls, slicing through the cocktail chatter. Tom's instincts kicked in as his heart thudded in syncopation with the frenetic rustle of silk and satin. People darted in every direction, fear coating their smiles, and for a fleeting moment, he hesitated. This was a test he hadn't expected, a sudden onslaught that stripped away the veneer of sophistication he had carefully curated. Struggling against the current of panic, he scanned the room, searching for the heavy-set man whose watchful eyes had turned this gala into an arena of tension. The man's focus was unwavering, observing the unfolding chaos from his perch, lips curled in an incredulous smirk. It struck Tom then this was not mere humor, it was a calculated observation, an invitation to confront the storm he sought to partake in. Adrenaline surged through him, igniting every synapse in his being. Tom realized that in this moment of chaos, there lay the same potential for opportunity as in every other encounter he had navigated thus far. He pushed through the tide of bodies, urgency lending speed to his stride. Calmly assessing, he noted where the crowd gathered, forming a circle around two agitated figures locked in confrontation. The scuffle appeared to stem from a disagreement over money, a power play that the wealthy were so accustomed to. There was arrogance in the way they jostled, but beneath it lay desperation and pride, and he understood both were triggers he needed to exploit. Stepping forward, he forced his way into the inner ring, driven by newfound purpose. As he edged closer, Tom recognized one of the combatants, a local entrepreneur renowned for his ruthless tactics and deep connections within the network he was yet to infiltrate. This was no random brawl. This was a power struggle that could unveil associations and secrets that might crack open the carefully constructed facade of influence he sought to penetrate. "Gentlemen," Tom interjected loudly enough to slice through the rising tension. Their heads snapped in his direction, surprise briefly overshadowing the rage as they sized him up. The heavy-set man shifted his weight slightly, intrigued by Tom's audacity. It was now or never. "Someone's bound to lose their head over this," Tom continued, stepping between the combatants. "How about we diffuse the anger for some smart negotiations instead? I can see the potential for a mutually beneficial arrangement here." The challenge was clear, the stakes sharper than ever. The angry gestures faltered as laughter escaped from the crowd, creating a moment of détente. This wasn't just reckless bravado. He could parlay this into leverage he once only dreamed of. Even as he spoke, a kaleidoscope of strategies formulated in his mind, each one more ambitious than the last. As he engaged both men in conversation, he maintained eye contact with the heavyset man, subtly mirroring the confidence he hoped to elicit. Behind their hardened exteriors were vulnerabilities that could be drawn out with the right dialogue. Each crafted sentence felt like an intricately woven thread, tethering together the chaotic energy of the room with a focused clarity. The initial tension began to thaw, the contentious atmosphere morphing into something palpably intriguing. Tom's instincts sharpened, recognizing the fear of shame blurring the entrepreneur's pride. Quickly, he employed psychological tactics he had learned from observing the elite, targeting their greed and desire for domination. By the time the scuffle settled, the entrepreneurs were engaged in a bargaining dialogue, one that Tom orchestrated with finesse. He could sense the admiration in the heavy-set man's gaze. Somewhere, a piece of their dynamic had shifted. The revelation struck him that he was not just a spectator, he was shaping outcomes, molding perceptions just as deftly as they did. As the atmosphere lightened and the crowd's buzzing renewed, a sudden realization cascaded over him. This was his moment of transformation, not defined by his past but sculpted by actions taken in present chaos. The heavy-set man stepped forward, the shifting glint in his eyes suggesting a new level of interest, and Tom felt himself inching closer to unveiling hidden layers of his world. Then, amidst the applause and veiled conversation that followed the brawl's resolution, a new, darker shadow caught Tom's attention, a figure standing at the edge of the venue, watching with an intensity that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. Was this another opponent, or a possible ally? Tom's journey had shifted. He was not merely a cleaner in the room anymore but a player on the chessboard, ready to confront whatever barriers lay beyond now. With adrenaline still coursing through him, he knew one truth: the storm had only just begun. What alliances would he forge in this dangerous game? And were those shadows closing in meant to challenge him further or to reveal an undiscovered truth? The night was far from over. Tom shifted his focus from the entrepreneurs to the figure standing at the edge of the venue, heart racing anew as curiosity mingled with uncertainty. The figure was shrouded in shadows, a stark contrast against the glimmering chaos he had just mastered. Every instinct urged him to investigate, yet caution coolly whispered for patience. He was already in deep waters, navigating negotiations that could determine his future, but this new player could alter his trajectory entirely. In mind racing, Tom weighed his options. Engaging the shadow could yield insights, alliances, or even leverage. However, he had learned the hard way that the allure of the unknown was fraught with dangers. This was a risky gambit, and the stakes had never been higher. But what choice did he have? Ignoring the shadow could mean missing the very opportunity he had been striving for. "Excuse me for a moment," he said to the two entrepreneurs, who were still buzzing from the resolution of their dispute. Their perplexed expressions faded into understanding as he cast one last look back. He maneuvered through clusters of guests, maintaining an air of casual but confident authority. Each step made the shadow grow clearer, revealing a woman dressed in an elegant yet understated outfit, her expression inscrutable, lips pursed as though she were weighing his every move. "Can I help you?" he opened, noting the flicker of recognition in her eyes. She wasn't a stranger, at least not to people in his growing circle.
A business associate of the heavy-set man, perhaps? Could she be a potential ally?
I was impressed, she replied, her tone clipped but not unfriendly.
You turned chaos into opportunity. Many wouldn't dare to step into that fray.
Thanks, Tom replied, curiosity sharpening his voice. It's just about knowing how to handle the situation.
But you already knew that.
Her brow quirked, revealing more than just interest. Confidence is vital, but so is the ability to read the characters in the room few can engage with.
You know this, yet I wonder how deep your knowledge really goes?
He sensed a challenge lacing her words, probing for weaknesses. I know enough to negotiate something beneficial for everyone, but to succeed, I also need to know who I can trust.
Alliances are key.
Her eyes sparkled with intrigue, her posture straightening.
Then allow me to offer some insight into this game you're now a part of.
Sometimes, the people wearing masks have no face behind them, and those who linger in shadows hold the true power.
Tom considered her words. Could she be the herald of alliances he sought, or simply another layer of deception in the high-stakes world he was navigating? What is your stake in this? Why are you interested in me?
He pressed, curiosity morphing into suspicion. The woman stepped closer, the din of the party fading into the background.
Because I've been where you are. Once, I too was a player caught between opportunities and threats.
And now, I identify talent when I see it, she confessed, her voice laced with experience and warning.
But the path to true influence is perilous. Are you willing to risk everything for insights that might give you the upper hand? Tom's heartbeat quickened.
Her words sliced through the noise, merging his internal conflict with a promise of something greater.
Here lay a connection to the undercurrents at play, an invitation into deeper layers of understanding, but could he even trust her?
Trust was a currency he was fast learning to value yet remained terrified to spend. His instincts wrestled with the chances of gaining a mentor in chaos versus the risk of entangling himself with someone whose motives were still obscured.
So, what is the next move?
He asked, excitement and anxiety blending as he braced for her response. A smirk curled at the edges of her lips, hinting at secrets kept close. Follow me, and perhaps I can offer you a glimpse into how deep this rabbit hole really goes. But as she turned, he noticed the heavy-set man approaching their direction, eyes narrowed, and posture shifting as if alert to his potential rivaless. Approach, Tom felt a rush of thrill and anxiety. This was the moment that could launch him forward or bury him under scrutiny. The path before him was ambiguous, but the choices lay in stark contrast to one another. Could he embrace the shadows and the unknown, or would he retreat into the safety of familiarity? The night was about to unfold in unraveling layers. What secrets did this woman carry, and would Tom dare to follow her into the depths? The true storm, he realized, was just gathering strength. The woman glanced back, her expression unreadable, before she slipped past the throngs of guests with an ease that made Tom's initial confidence feel flimsy.
Each step she took awakened a flicker of desperate ambition within him.
He hesitated, wrestling with the sense of urgency ignited by the heavy-set man's looming figure. Yet something compelled him to follow the promise of knowledge, or perhaps the challenge of the unknown. If I don't go now, this opportunity might slip away, he silently reminded himself. With a quick glance over his shoulder to gauge his pursuer's distance, he pushed forward, weaving through the clusters of conversations, his heart pounding a rapid drone of determination against the backdrop of laughter and the clinking of glasses. Tom finally caught up with her by a dimly lit corridor, ornate with heavy drapes and scattered foliage, somehow removed from the chaos of the gathering. Here, the murmurs of the crowd faded, the air thick with tension and possibility. She turned, a faint smile gracing her lips.
So you chose to venture forth into the unknown. Good. You'll find that the edge is where the real growth happens. What do you mean by that?
He asked, his voice steady but laced with trepidation. The woman known only as Eliza studied him with an intensity that felt like a spotlight shining on his insecurities. Every opportunity bears the weight of potential failure. But the choice to step beyond safety molds who you are becoming.
Are you truly ready for what lies ahead?
Tom found himself standing at a crossroads, her piercing gaze igniting a sense of resolve that had begun to flicker in doubt. He paused, considering the essence of her words. Was he prepared to press further into the murky waters of the business world, risking everything he had fought to build? Your question suggests I'm not, he replied, his bravado rising even as his insides churned.
But I need to understand what I'm getting into first.
Eliza tilted her head, clearly amused.
Insight is less about knowledge and more about instinct.
I can teach you the nuances of perception, the tricks that separate the serious players from those merely treading water.
What's the catch?
He asked, his mind racing. Surely, nothing came without strings attached in a world that whispered treachery in every shadow.
No catch. Just a guarantee that if you follow me, you may find truths about yourself in this arena that you never anticipated.
She leaned in, intent on breaking through his defenses.
And understanding the darkness can light your path to victory.
As the weight of her words settled in, Tom considered what he might reveal about his potential, the eagerness to confront his limitations battling with the fear of discovery. The stakes were palpable, each moment heavy with implications.
Could he accept the challenge? Or would he recoil back to the familiar, allowing this moment to dissolve into just another missed opportunity?
Tell me what you want in return, he demanded, forcing himself to take the step further into this dangerous dance. Just your willingness to learn and adapt, she countered, a subtle glint of approval shining in her eyes. No one becomes a master without first grappling with their own fears. Trust that each lesson will carve the path to your emergence. Tom's internal dialogue surged, a desperate urge to forfeit the predictable for a shot at greatness clashed with a protective instinct. He chose to lean into the unknown, not entirely sure of his footing but resolute in his desire for growth.
All right.
I'm in, he stated, his voice firmer than he felt.
Eliza's expression flickered with satisfaction, as if he had passed an unseen test. Good choice.
But be prepared, I don't hold back when it comes to revealing truths. Their pact formed a fragile thread, binding him to her enigmatic mentorship and the shadows that swirled enticingly around them. As she turned, leading him deeper into the recesses of the gathering, Tom felt a wave of anticipation wash over him. There would be no turning back now, but as they approached a secluded alcove, shadows danced ominously, and the heavy-set man's eyes caught his sight once more. Tension coursed through Tom, merging fear with exhilaration.
What secrets awaited him in Eliza's teachings? And would they push him to confront adversaries he had yet to discover?
The undercurrents of ambition were stirring once again, and it was time to find out how deep the waters truly ran.
Tom stepped into the dimly lit alcove, the air suddenly thickening with gravity.
Eliza walked beside him, her presence unwavering yet charged with an electric tension, as if she knew that what lay ahead wasn't merely an exploration of knowledge, but a crucible of his character. First lesson, she stated, her voice steady.
Perception is reality. Follow my lead, observe, and adapt quickly.
Tom nodded, his pulse racing. He could feel his instincts igniting an unexpected mix of fear and exhilaration nesting within him. This was it, the space where he would stretch his boundaries, where he might discover capabilities hidden from his own view.
They observed a small gathering just beyond the alcove.
A cluster of individuals exchanged business cards with practiced precision, their faces masks of affability.
But Tom sensed an undercurrent of rivalry beneath the surface, a stark competition veiled by polite smiles.
They were like wolves, cloaked in the sheep-esque clothing of networking.
Do you notice it?
Eliza whispered, not taking her eyes off the group.
Her question hung in the air, challenging him to seek insight in the ordinary.
Tom squinted, focusing on the dynamics, the subtle gestures, the way eyes darted toward the competition when offers were made, the guarded laughter that carried a hint of disdain. The realization pressed heavy on him. Each interaction was a negotiation, a power play. I see them pretending to be allies, but he hesitated, for he didn't want to dismiss his earlier optimism. It's more about positioning rather than forging connections. Precisely, Eliza replied, a spark of approval in her eyes.
In every interpersonal exchange, understanding intent gives you an edge.
One must develop an acute sensitivity to read the unsaid. Tom absorbed her words, feeling the foundations of his previous mindset begin to shift. Light had dawned on the landscape he accepted as simple networking. He wasn't merely building relationships, he was participating in a game of strategy. Then, before he could settle into this newfound awareness, Eliza signaled him forward.
Now, watch and learn. You're about to put theory into practice.
A pang of anxiety rattled through him as they strolled closer. The heavy-set man he had glimpsed before was among the group, his imposing figure easily overshadowing the others.
Tom's previous instinct to evade was overrun by a burgeoning resolve.
Here was an opportunity to decipher the complexities that governed this world. Eliza approached the man with calm assuredness. "Gavin, I believe we need a conversation about our last discussion," she announced, her tone professional yet playful. Tom lingered at a thin distance, keenly aware of the heavy-set man's assessing gaze. His heart quickened as Gavin began to respond, a flood of confidence rolling off him.
The atmosphere thickened as Eliza nodded, gesturing for Tom to come closer.
"This is Tom," Eliza introduced him.
"A promising asset who understands the value of perception and opportunity." The heavy-set man looked Tom over, skepticism etched on his face. "What makes you think you can keep up in this game, kid?"
he asked, a subtle challenge draping his words. Tom's mind raced, and the pang of uncertainty clawed at him. But now was the moment to confront what he had vowed to overcome: the need for validation and acceptance in a world governed by power. "I'm not here to just keep up, I'm here to understand the dynamics at play," he replied, feeling an unfamiliar steadiness in his voice.
"I'm willing to learn from challenges and adapt quickly." Gavin raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued.
There was a moment's pause, then the heavy-set man laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that rolled between them. "Bravado can only take you so far," he said, dismissing Tom as he returned his attention to Eliza.
"But it speaks volumes about your courage, at least."
As they drifted away, Tom's stomach churned with both pride and residual apprehension. He had taken the first step into a world filled with adversaries who judged not only on merit but on character.
Eliza turned toward him, an inscrutable
expression gracing her lips.
"You see that reaction?
You've awakened something within him, but this is just the beginning. And remember, in this arena, every moment is a test, and every test recalibrates your worth."
What did she mean by every test? Would he rise to the occasion, or become lost in the murky waters of manipulation?
As doubt creeped back in, a sense of urgency pushed him onward. Each lesson now felt like a ticking clock, with his resolve waning against the decibels of doubt echoing in his mind. Eliza smiled, but it was a predatory grin that signaled the inevitable nature of the game ahead.
"Tomorrow, we'll explore confrontation. This city is full of players ready to pounce on your vulnerabilities. Are you ready to face them?"
The door to discovery swung open, and Tom took a deep breath, his determination hardening amidst the chaos that surrounded him. He had unlocked the first layer of understanding, but the key to real mastery lingered just beyond his grasp, waiting to be seized. What awaited him next would demand more than courage, it would require heart. The real challenge was yet to unfold, and Tom could only wonder how each confrontation would shape his identity in this elaborate dance of ambition. Tom stood in front of the mirror, his own reflection a mingling of resolve and uncertainty. The day ahead loomed before him like a dark cloud pregnant with the thunder of unknown confrontations. Eliza's words echoed in his mind, the promise of revelation tinged with the fear of exposure. The city felt alive, each intersection a potential stage for the unfolding drama of ambition and rivalry. As he suited up, the crisp fabric fitting snugly and signaling a readiness he wasn't entirely sure he felt. As he adjusted his tie, he caught sight of his hands trembling slightly.
Was it fear or adrenaline coursing through him?
Perhaps both.
He let out a slow breath, trying to quell the storm within.
This was his chance to confront the invisible barriers of self-doubt that had shackled him for too long. Arriving at the bustling venue, the atmosphere thrummed with an electric energy.
Voices blended into a white noise of aspiration, with laughter that seemed to carry undertones of competition.
Tom scanned the crowded room, his heart pounding as he searched for the strategic foothold Eliza had spoken of.
Who were the allies he could team up with? Who were the adversaries he needed to navigate around?
"Remember, perception is reality," he muttered to himself, steeling his nerves. Eliza appeared beside him, her demeanor radiating calm assurance.
"Focus on what's in front of you," she instructed, guiding his gaze toward a group at the far end of the room.
Among them was Margaret, an influential figure known for her strategic partnerships and cutthroat ambition. Tom felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This was the perfect opportunity to test his learning.
Are you ready to approach?
Eliza inquired, her piercing gaze assessing his level of preparedness.
I think I can handle it, he said, surprising even himself with the confidence that crept into his voice. As they approached Margaret's circle, Tom's pulse quickened. He noticed the subtle hierarchy at play, how conversation shifted as certain names were dropped, how laughter would crescendo or fall at the mere flick of a phrase. They were indeed wolves in a den of ambition, and each moment felt like a calculated maneuver. When they reached the group, Eliza introduced Tom with a confident flair. Margaret, this is Tom, a fresh perspective in our little game, ready to dive into the fray. Margaret eyed him critically, her lips curling up into a knowing smile. A brave move stepping into this arena, Tom. What do you think is the most important quality one needs for survival here? She asked, her tone inviting but sharper. Tom inhaled deeply, the weight of her gaze pressed upon him. Adaptability, he replied, steadying his voice against the quaking in his stomach. Understanding the nuances of interaction, the hidden intentions, it's what will keep you alive in an environment like this. Her eyebrow arched, intrigued. Interesting. But tell me, have you ever faced a real challenge, one that threatened your standing? The question sparked a flicker of tension in the air, her challenge hanging like a sword yet to fall. He hesitated, a flood of memories rushing forward, moments marked not by adversity but by self-imposed limits. Looking back at Margaret, he felt a charge course through him. Every day is a challenge, he answered, the words spilling forth. The real threat isn't external, it comes from within, from the fears we let define us. Margaret regarded him appraisingly, and Tom held her gaze, refusing to look away. This was not just an exchange of words, it was a calibration of their intentions. He felt something shift, an acknowledgement that perhaps, just perhaps, he was more than he had allowed himself to be. The moment stretched, and the group seemed to lean in, eager for a reaction. But instead of yielding to their expectations, Tom leaned into his burgeoning confidence. The question isn't whether I can survive, it's about how I will thrive, he added, a challenge echoing in his voice. Margaret's laughter rang out, surprisingly genuine. You just may have a chance, Tom. Let us see how you handle the next endeavor. With that, she turned back to her group, and Tom felt a rush of triumph mixed with disbelief. He had held his ground, had stepped firmly into the fray, but just as he began to savor the victory, Eliza leaned in, her voice a low whisper. A good start, but remember, it's not just about standing out. It's about building alliances or eliminating threats. Are you ready for the fallout? A chill swept through him as the implications of her words crashed over him. Was he prepared for the darker confrontations that lay ahead? Because the game had only just begun, and he could feel the lurking shadows far too near. In that moment, Tom realized that every word, every interaction, was another layer of the self he needed to confront. The tension was palpable, he now stood on the edge of a deeper engagement that would test the very fabric of his resilience. Would he continue to rise, or would he falter in the face of real adversity? As Tom moved further into the crowd, he sensed eyes on him, judging, measuring. The specter of his next confrontation loomed large, and with it the realization that the truth of this game was about to unravel in ways he had never imagined. Tom stood in the glimmering expanse of yet another magnificent Westwood mansion, but this time, his reflection revealed more than just a cleaner, it showcased the triumph of self-reclamation. No longer a ghost wandering through opulence, he embodied the embodiment of possibility. Every edge of the room he scanned reflected the personal growth he had undergone, transforming obstacles into stepping stones and uncertainties into resolve. As he polished the last chandelier, Tom thought of the medal he had nearly relinquished, the insignia of his grandfather's legacy that he once considered a burden. Today, it represented resilience and a tenacity that surged through his veins. He had broken free from the fear that tethered him to invisibility, he was a participant in this world, no longer just an observer. With every encounter forged in power and ambition, he had learned to navigate their complicated dynamics with poise and knowledge, and now, armed with newfound confidence, he sat across from the heavy-set businessman. Instead of quaking in fear, Tom articulated his vision with clarity, elucidating a dynamic partnership that would harness the entrepreneurial spirit they both recognized. The conversation was not merely a negotiation, it was a mutual recognition of capability. He had stepped boldly into discussions that once would have felt far beyond his reach.
As the meeting concluded, the businessman nodded appreciatively, signaling to his associates that Tom's perspective held weight. Later, as he walked through the mansion, a sense of satisfaction enveloped him. Each room, once filled with existential doubt, echoed with clarity, a testament to the personal growth he had achieved.
Flashes of Eliza's teachings coursed through his memory, reminding him of the strategic acumen he had developed.
In navigating this treacherous labyrinth, he had begun to see the world not as overwhelming, but as a canvas waiting for him to leave his mark. Recognition was not only internal but external. Invitations to exclusive events were now commonplace. A trifecta of respect and awe began to fill the gaps between Tom and the elite. He garnered attention not just for his connections but for his remarkable insights that resonated in boardroom discussions. The elite now sought his perspective, confirming how far he had come. The weight he felt so often inside, that familiar tightness, had softened into a solid confidence recognized by those surrounding him. The fear that once seemed insurmountable now felt like a whisper from his past. Tom had proved his mettle, each win carving anew into the identity he crafted for himself. His mother's health, once a looming shadow, was now an engine driving his ambition. Each achievement meant that he could provide for her, a prospect that fueled his journey with a profound purpose. Financial victories offered streams of relief that became opportunities for medical advancements, bringing hope that once felt extinguished. In a final twist of fate, a distinguished philanthropist reached out, captivated by Tom's story and tenacity. She wanted to partner on an initiative aimed at helping other struggling families reclaim their lost legacies. In that moment, he realized he could pay forward the lessons learned from his challenging experience. He had the ability to spark transformation in others while concurrently building a legacy of his own. With the proposal on the table, Tom understood his journey had not only redefined his future, but also illuminated the path for those he once impersonated. Eventually stepping beyond the edges of mere survivor, he now stood solidly in the realm of expansive opportunity, cementing his established position within a realm once believed inaccessible. And as he held the medal from his grandfather, he vowed to ensure its significance forged a new narrative for others to journey through. This chapter signified the end of one struggle and the birth of another, a narrative steeped in purpose, connection, and legacy. Tom looked beyond the threshold of the mansion, his heart swelling with pride at the transformations he had accomplished, not just within but also extending toward the greater fabric of humanity. His moment had arrived, but this would be just the beginning. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to support the algorithm. Share your reactions and theories about the ending in the comments below. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us build a community that thrives on personal overcoming.